everyone. Thank you, Redevelopment Commission members, for attending today's Madison Redevelopment Commission meeting for April 4th, 2023. Mr. Grody, have you
Ready to,
ready to
so
roll?
let's
Yeah.
start the meeting. Call to order. First order of business on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the March 7th meeting. Has everybody had a chance to review those? Any questions or comments? If none, could I get a motion to approve?
Make that motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. So moved. Next order of business is claims. Circulating before the board were packet of claims totaling $255,000, $255,075.75. I think everybody's had a chance to review those. Several claims for professional services, and biggest one is for the Riverfront Development Committee, design and construction for the super overlook.
Yeah, and that'll be, that is almost our last payment. We held some retainage back on that project until they're complete, so there will be one more claim of our commitment coming here in probably June.
In June, okay. Any questions or comments on the claims? If none, can I get a motion to approve and pay?
Make a motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye, so moved. Mr. Steinhardt, old business.
Yeah, at this time, I don't have any old business, unless you have any. I will give you an update on the last resolution that was passed about the downtown reallocation area. We also had a conversation about the decrement process and how to look at parcels throughout the North Madison allocation area and their value. Reedy has been reviewing that and does believe that going through that process makes financial sense for the commission. And would increase our revenue by doing that. So we'll be doing that over the next month, be looking for some information on that at the May meeting. And because both of those processes, the new allocation area and the decrement process, requires Plan Commission approval and City Council approval, the mayor and I decided to take all of that in the month of June to those two commissions versus splitting it up so that our business can be done at once. So that's an update on that.
Okay. I'll let you continue.
You will see the financial report is in there as well from Reedy Financial. Nothing out of the ordinary, so they are not here today. I did provide the commission with a quarterly report. As you will note, there's been continue to be several things we're doing and working on. Do be prepared for a ribbon cutting April 20th. That date's been set for Habitat for Humanity, and I believe that's going to be at 5:30 up there on site. So you'll be prepared to participate in that since you're funding that project. The more information will be coming on that. All of the other projects are moving along fairly well in the process. We are waiting for the final agreement with Culver's in their real estate assignment before we execute the agreement on the construction of Franks Drive, but those bids are good until the next meeting. So.
Okay.
If there's any other questions about any of the current projects, I'm happy to try to answer those.
So when we look at which I know we've talked a couple times about how fluid this projection is on the financial statement.
Yep. The report.
Yeah, I mean, do we have a timeline on some of these bigger projects from a spend standpoint? And then if we are gonna have to source additional funds, how does that?
Yeah, so
play?
based upon the current projections and the project prioritizations, depending on the timing of all that, we do show potentially, again, leveraging the North Madison allocation area about the time frame that we have, about that 10-year mark in 2024 for a $3 million infusion in capital to leverage towards other projects. We would anticipate some of that dollars going for current priorities, but also some dollars going for potential Ready 2.0 dollars. Again, with the 2035 timeframe, issuing bonds, anything less than 10 years isn't feasible. So the 2024 timeframe is that timeframe that we've programmed in there, Dan, under bond proceeds in projection 2024, which is why you'll see some of those dollar amounts up. In terms of other quality of life initiatives that we have identified, the only one that will probably be a large expenditure left this year would be any items associated with the downtown grocery or pharmacy that we would come back to the commission for as a part of incentives. Unless I'm missing anything there, Mayor, in terms of large capital
Well, I
outlays
think,
for the remainder of the
Dan,
year.
I think it's an excellent question, because when we're talking about this all the time in staff meetings, when we have large projects that have an extended period of time for development, we're expending a lot of resources for design and engineering and right-of-way acquisition, for example, but the project itself may be 3 or 4 years out. You know, as you can imagine now, which we probably weren't talking much about 2 or 3 years ago, there's a substantial amount of price risk that's involved in the long horizon projects, and we're seeing that, you know, play out in just about everything that we take out to bid. Fortunately, we've been able to absorb everything, but the big project that's still out there that hasn't been bid out yet, that still exposes us to price risk, is the Clifty Drive improvements, the sidewalks. And the other ones, you know, are more subjective, because we're gonna have opportunities come up, and then we're gonna be able to say, yeah, we can do it and not do it, and we're gonna wanna do opportunities that have a nearer or a shorter term benefit for us. But Clifty Drive is one that we've been working on for years, that now has been pushed out to 2024 as part of a partnership with NDOT. NDOT really is doing the bidding, and the bids didn't come back in an acceptable manner, and so they're gonna essentially press the pause button and come back and bid those later. So that's one where I think that there is the potential to have to redirect monies to cover the price risk that we would absorb if we want to continue doing the project. I think we do, but just like everything else we've seen, you know, prices are up 40 or 50%. That's one that's out there, that's a big ticket item that could be unknown right now, but it's a project that we're vested in.
Yeah, that would be the only project. The RDC dollar amounts that are in here are the dollar amounts that you initially contributed towards that project. There's other dollars at play as well. So again, as we start to get those prices and understand NDOT's situation around those prices, we'll know more if we need to participate and where those funding sources come from. But NDOT did move that letting out to October of 2023, and that'll move construction to 2024.
Will there be anything in the infrastructure bill that passed last year that would be part of that?
That would come through for the state dollars that would be contributed toward a project potentially. But they are committing tremendous amounts of that investment all across the state, and a lot of that's gonna go to interstates, improvements, bridges, a lot of state highways. It's mostly the infrastructure money is gonna go to state highway projects.
And even if there was additional dollars locally, there's, you know, again, typically a 20% match on those dollars. So as we've talked before, Main Street's a long-term project that we're continuing to apply for phase by phase, and getting, you know, federal dollars and state dollars as a part of that.
And
We
that's
still have,
another one too that has long lead times
Yeah.
on it, that, you know, they're doing call for projects in 2028 already, for the allocation of monies.
so, yeah, try to budget for that in 2028 today is a challenge,
Right.
challenge.
You know, what I would say too, John, and Dan and Commission, a lot of what we do is very project specific and shorter in term. So we've even though we've talked a lot about grocery store, for example, and we took the offensive measure of acquiring the property, that also gives us some currency to work with regard to an incentive for an operator. The dollar amounts are gonna be less significant in the majority of the quality of life type investments that we're making than infrastructure. And, so I don't think our risk is substantial, because we also have the capability of pushing things out or canceling a project altogether if we needed to. we think we have a really good chart of priorities here that are very affordable, but the road infrastructure projects are gonna be the big risk items. And we'll just have to, do a couple of things, and that is continue to prioritize. And what Tony had mentioned before, which we've talked about, is we've got to extract the value out of the North Madison allocation area, and we're gonna get to the tipping point in 2024 where it's a go or no-go decision for us. The commission had several millions of dollars of liquidity a few years ago that, was then taken to pay down debt, long-term debt. Strategically, I would have done something different and not done that, but we're gonna have to replenish that liquidity with those dollars for the North Madison allocation area, and, but that's just part of planning your TIF, planning for your TIF district appropriately.
And I think in 2024, we're looking at, housing being continued to be a discussion point within the community broadly. I'm sure each of you and your businesses face that daily. We faced that recently here in the city with Emily coming to the community trying to find a place to live. I just spoke at the Jefferson County Leadership, their group meeting last week. Housing was a top priority for every organization that was in there, from Hanover College to the high school to Ivy Tech. So we certainly know housing continues to be in tight supply here. The good news is the state's working on that at a state level to try to help communities of our size tackle that in some creative ways. So hopefully when the legislature's done here midsummer or late spring, by midsummer we'll be able to tackle some unique strategies. We've been working on that, had conversations with developers, had some interest in some unique things in the community, although interest rates in the economy has sort of slowed that discussion down in the last 4 or 5 months. So hopefully with some of the new tools the state's coming around with here, as part of the legislature, that will help us bring that conversation back to the forefront midsummer.
Now on to city matters. Any update, Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, thank you for asking. It's one of my favorite parts of the meeting. Just to share with you a lot of great stuff that's going on, and I'll be brief, but as you know, for the last 2 years, we've been working on READY, which is the Regional Economic Accelerated Development Initiative. It's been extremely successful. Last week, we attended a regional meeting with the Indiana Economic Development Corporation. And there's about 3 weeks left of this year's legislative session, and what will be in the next biennial budget is another $500 million for additional READY initiatives. And they'll probably follow a very similar pattern. The regions will probably stay the same. They are encouraging communities to do plans. We did a plan to begin with, so we've got a list of projects that we had already identified that were beyond the conceptual stage. We'll continue to work on those. READY 2.0 is going to help facilitate that. And where there's a tremendous amount of investment happening across our community, that will be factored in to help us get these READY grant dollars from the RDA. As you know, Jefferson County received almost $10 million between the city of Madison and Hanover College for probably half a dozen or more really solid quality of life investments and the vet tech school at Hanover College. So by the end of this month, we'll know exactly where that's landing. But the timetable that IEDC has announced is they want to essentially start receiving applications from the regions this summer and make the awards in the fourth quarter for the $500 million. We're not sure yet what they'll do with regard to the cap on the awards. Our region received $50 million. We're not sure if that's going to continue to be that limit. We could have used $85 to $100 million in our region and spent it very wisely. So a lot to still learn there, but there's going to continue to be opportunity for us to fund our key priorities through that program because they'll have a regional impact. So I mentioned that, and that's all tied into on the legislative front. There's some bills that are working through that's going to help provide gap financing for housing. And it's also going to make it easier for us to do essentially have the redevelopment commission involved in new housing development. As we get to the fourth quarter of this year and our priorities shift from project management with the 18 projects or so that we have, probably about 18 or 20 projects that are coming out of the ground, our focus for the next several years is really going to be housing development. That is the one thing that's holding our community back now. It's been over 25 years since there's been any meaningful investment in housing in our community, and we are positioned for growth sans the housing. We'll be working with Winterwood for the housing development at Sunrise Crossing, so that's going to be priority number one, and then the rest of that is looking across the city of Madison and Jefferson County on where we can partner to develop more housing. But there's new legislation that's going to be really conducive to helping our housing. On the financial front, Dan actually brought this up at the last meeting, but at the next meeting, we'll have a claim for the PACE program. We didn't draw all the money out of 2022, so we'll draw the balance of 2022's commitment and then the first half of 2023's commitment, because our PACE program has been extremely successful, and just over the last 3 years, it's cultivated around $8 million of neighborhood revitalization in our community, and a lot of really seriously dilapidated structures are now getting new life and being preserved and providing meaningful investment for our community. The property at the corner of West and Second Street is a perfect example of a dilapidated structure that's been in bad condition for a couple of decades that is now seeing a multi-million-dollar investment for housing and some potential restaurant space. So that we'll bring that at the next one. We will also, in probably late May, early June, receive our first tax draw for the year. So that will help replenish our funds. And the whole exercise we're going through with regards to the decrement process is to help us, plan for the future, the decrement process, but also the creation of the riverfront allocation area is about having a long horizon and preserving a capital stream that helps us continue with our development priorities in Madison. So that process, as you mentioned, we're going to slow down a little bit, complete a decrement process, come back in June, share with you all the results of what values that's going to add for the downtown riverfront district, so we can reset those base AVs and in the future be able to capitalize on the strong investment that's happening down here. And then he mentioned Habitat. So Habitat is a great organization that we're happy to partner with and see it come to fruition too. Those are my updates.
Great, thank you. Any questions for the mayor or Tony? Nope. There being no other business, our next meeting is May the 5th at 12 p.m.
And that is a change from what was originally
Thank you guys
published.
for accommodating change. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks. And if there's no other business, could I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second?
All in favor?
Thank you all.
Thank
and
you.
Happy Easter.